Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special live edition of The Healing Home. I'm your host, Michelle, and as you can see, I have a different background. I'm in my mom's basement, so we're kicking it that 70s show style, as you can see. And I'm so excited to be going live. And please, in the chat, let me know how I sound because I don't have a mic. So if the sound quality is lacking, let me know and I will see what I can do about that. I could maybe bring the computer closer to me or whatever, but I'm in a basement, so it's a little echoey. But I'm really happy to be here. And for anybody who tuned in to last Thursday, all right, sound is okay. Thank you, Jen. If anyone who listened to Mario and I's episode of last Thursday, just this past week, I had mentioned that this was going to be a pre-recorded episode. But I'll be honest, we had a pretty unfortunate event right before I left town. And that was that we had to put our cat Carl down. And I was even unsure if I was going to even say that on the camera because I wasn't sure if I was even going to be able to get it out. But over the last couple days, I've really come to terms with a lot of things with it. And Carl was going to turn 18 in July. He had a lot of pre-existing, not a lot, but he had a few pre-existing conditions. As you guys maybe know, we've talked about his upper respiratory situation was really getting a lot worse. He was declining quite quickly over the last month or so. He was really declining. And over the couple weeks before I left town, he was really declining, and he stopped eating. He didn't eat for like 5 days, and it was really sad to watch. And Mario and I both knew he was in pain. We were just kind of trying to keep him as comfortable as possible. And literally the day before I left, which was last Friday, he really had it was not good. He had some weird neurological stuff going on. His eyes were doing all these crazy vibratory movements. He couldn't eat. He was trying to eat, but when he would go down to his bowl, he would fall over, his equilibrium was off. So, he gave us that sign. I asked him for a sign and he gave it, and we made the decision. And, it was really, really hard. But like I said, I've come to terms with a lot of things, and I just know he's at peace. And I'm just so grateful we had him in our lives for as long as we did. A lot of our friends really loved him. He loved a lot of our friends, and he was such a great cat. And he was Mario's bud for 18 years. He was in my life for about 12. So, I really know that he crossed the rainbow bridge. I felt it. And I've been feeling his presence. I've been feeling him watching over me. And, we gave him a proper burial before I left. And I'm just really I'm grateful that I was there for it, And so with that, I'm live, and this is not pre-recorded. So here we are. And before I really start getting into the episode, as always, I just want to say thank you to all my patrons who are joining me over there. It's been awesome. And, all your support, as I always say, is so freaking appreciated. I'm grateful to be able to be at my mom's house right now and work while I'm here. I'm so grateful I have the opportunity to even be here for as long as I can. I'm here for 11 days, which is a pretty long trip for me, especially coming back home. But to be able to work while I'm here, it's been freaking glorious. And it's been wonderful being with my family. My brother's getting married on Saturday, so there's just a lot of high energy going on, lots of family time. I've been able to help my mom with so many things, even not related to the wedding, that has just been so freaking cool to do. So just wanted to say all of those things. And one last update. So I just found out today, so I made a post about Solomon's seal. I think it was last Saturday. It's on my Instagram. And what I found out was the Solomon seal in that post is actually false Solomon's seal. Okay. And so I just wanted to clear that. So if anybody saw that post and was like, oh, it's Solomon's seal, a friend of mine actually reached out and was like, I think that's actually false Solomon's seal. So I was grateful she did. And I just wanted to give a heads up to people that, that's the deal. But false Solomon's seal actually can also be used as medicine. So, and sometimes it's actually even called Solomon's seal. And when it was showed to me in the woods, the plant that I showed in my Instagram post was shown to me as Solomon seal. So then I showed it to you as Solomon seal, but it's false Solomon seal. So just a heads up on that. I didn't want that, whatever. I wanted to clear the air with it or whatever. So anyway, so that is the deal with that. And so today we are going to talk about, well, first, because we're live, I'm just going to come through and I'm going to see who's going on, who's in the chat. All right, we got Hank. What's up, Flat Earth Hippie? Always a pleasure. Miss Jenny G, I should say Mrs. Jenny G is here. Family Fun Guys here. What's up, you guys? Big ups. Leaves of Grass. How you doing, Amy? Good to see you. Hi, Jen. Okay, yep. Confirmed you can hear us loud and clear. What's up, Pedro? Pedro is such a great friend of ours. He has spent lots of time with Carl. He's one of Carl's main dudes. Like to refer to Pedro as Uncle Pedro when I would talk about him to Carl, because Pedro is always down to come and help us and stay with Carl when we were out of town and stuff. So shout out Pedro as always. Mercury Mel is here. What's up? Hello, beautiful to you too. Yes, thank you for all the well wishes for Carl. Yeah, what a good dude, man. Mary Mars Day. What's up, Kabir? Yes, great wedding energy. And they're getting married on the full moon, which I haven't looked up yet if that's like, is that a good omen? Is that an okay omen? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's also the strawberry moon, which is pretty cool because that has like a nice, very summery, Gemini, sweet sort of energy, you know, so that's really cool. And I'm very excited for all that stuff. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Remind Mario not to forget his dancing shoes. Oh my God. I told him to pack them. He told me today he was making sure the traction was working well on them, which is awesome. So anyway, all right, y'all. Well, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for hanging out. And yeah, so today, as in the description, as I talked about on last Thursday, you know, I wanted to talk to you guys about my healing journey and why is my project and why is my business called The Healing Home, right? You know, because I took a long time to get to this point, really. It's been a long road and a long way in a lot of ways, you know, and The Healing Home was birthed from me going through basically a dark night of the soul and realizing a lot of things about myself that, you know, I knew were there, but I was choosing to kind of, you know, tuck away as we do, right? Because there's so many things in all of our lives that happen to us that are super uncomfortable. We don't want to talk about it. It makes you feel like whatever it makes you feel like, which is probably not very good. But, you know, in all my experience of going through these sorts of things, sometimes the things that make us feel the worst are the things that will make us excel the most. And it's like a hard thing to describe until you start really tapping into these sorts of sides of ourselves that we all have. And, you know, no one is exempt from trauma here. And that's just like what the deal is. I truly believe we are here to go through trauma so that we can like heal it and try and resolve it in these lifetimes that we have here in this realm, because we're in the 3D, we are susceptible to all these things on the physical level that can do all sorts of things to us. And the physical events affect us psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, all the way through. And that is one of the reasons why I have The Healing Home, because I realize how important it is for us to not only do this work, but have the conversations, facilitate the conversations that can lead us to a deeper realm of healing. And I think that one of my roles here is to be a conversation facilitator, a fire stick bearer and passer, and a person to share my experiences to hopefully help and inspire someone else to go on that same healing journey or path, you know, whatever you want to call it. And so, my whole thing with herbs really was a huge gateway. Finding herbs was the beginning of the healing journey. It was like scratching the surface. And so, a lot of people have maybe heard my story about how I found herbalism and all that stuff. So, I wasn't really going to go into all of that super much because I've talked about that a lot. But what I was going to talk about is just, once I was introduced to herbs and I was interning at an herb shop and then I started working at one, I was like, whoa, I know that I want to do this with my life. And I really want to, just go with this because I feel it in my heart. And so I was working at the herb shop and, I just never really felt at home in the herbalism community, in the herbalist community, like in the mainstream one, I guess I would say, or even in the one that was in Portland, Oregon. I have so much respect for so many of the people though that are in that community, because if it wasn't for some of those people, I wouldn't have had the doors opened for me that were there. What I found is that they weren't my people. Like, I think by that time, Mario and I were learning about a lot of crazy things and how the world works. And we were really walking away from like the liberal lifestyle. And here we were in Portland, which is like a mecca of liberalism and all of that stuff. And herbalism kind of goes hand in hand with that because there's just like a lot of hippy dippy stuff. And I love hippie shit. Don't get me wrong. But it's like the distorted hippie shit. You know what I mean? Like the 1960s hippie movement stuff is like a distorted version of what a hippie might really do and their ideals that they carry. And so these were some of the things that I was starting to realize while I was working at the shop. And I was like, man, I'm just going to do my own thing. So I started a business. I started a small herbal business called Sea Goat Herbs. And I called it Sea Goat Herbs because I'm a Capricorn. And I really identify with the Capricorn energy, I identify with the sea goat and goats in general, all the energy that comes along with them. So I was like, let's do sea goat, right? So I started it, and I started it in around 2015, maybe 2000-ish. Yeah, 2015, started taking it seriously in 2016, started doing wholesale and farmers markets and all of that kind of stuff on a pretty small scale. I wasn't in like really big stores or anything, but I had a decent amount of wholesale accounts, and I was doing farmers markets every weekend and all that stuff. And yeah, it was fun for a while, but something just never really felt like it was moving. There was something in the way, right? There was just some kind of block that I kept coming up against. And it turns out, like the block that I was dealing with, it didn't have anything really, well, I can't say anything. Of course, it had things to do with the way I was running the business because I was inexperienced in that, but I did have Mario to help me, with a lot of the back end things like he still does with logos and websites and those sorts of things. But I was still learning, how do you run a successful business, right? And I think it's something that it takes time to learn these things, but I kept coming up to these blocks, and it kind of came to the realization that it really had nothing to do with the business itself. It wasn't really necessarily what I was doing with the business. It was literally an emotional block due to trauma that I had not addressed, and trauma that I had been like stuffing down and was embarrassed about and felt guilty about and didn't want anyone to see. And so because of that, I was realizing that I was being like held back emotionally. And because I was being held back emotionally, I wasn't able to like give my all to this business because I wasn't fully integrated. Right. And so, and I just have to preface, Mario has been such a catalyst in all of this, in so many ways, and particularly with my healing journey, right? Because he's just been such a, just an amazing person in so many ways, but like knows what makes me tick in ways that other people don't. So the thing that everything came down to was Mario knew the right questions to ask, and he wasn't afraid to ask them. And him having that ability really opened me up in ways that I had never been opened up before. And so the main trauma that I wanted to talk to you guys about, and I'll say, this, it's not even I mean, this is a sensitive topic. And so if you're watching and you have issues with hearing about assault and things like that, I would say that maybe it was really nice hanging out. And if you wanted to bow out at this point, I would totally understand, because, it's not a comfortable subject to talk about and you don't talk about it a lot. But, I just wanted to give people a little preface about that, because, yeah, it's a big deal. And I think that it needs to be talked about more. And there's a lot of people that go through situations that I went through. And there's no reason that it shouldn't be talked about, but there's a time and a place. And sometimes people just aren't ready, because there was a point in my life when I was not ready at all. And I totally respect that. And I would never judge anyone for that. So just want to give anybody who's listening right now an out before I go into it, because yeah, it's just it's like facts of life kind of thing. And so the main event that happened to me when I was about 21, I was 21, just about to be 22, is that I was raped. And I was drugged and raped, actually. And it was done by somebody that I knew. It was done by somebody I worked with. It was done by somebody I would have never imagined would do that. And it happened, right? And I was a young doe, okay? And the funny thing about this whole episode that I came to the conclusion of, before I really started doing everything, was, holy crap, if I talk about this one, I'm going to be talking about it like here at my mom's house in my hometown, where all this happened, basically. Not at the house itself, but I was living at my mom's house, during that time in my life. And I was living here in my hometown when it all happened. And so I kind of like had the epiphany of like, whoa, this shit's like full circle right here. Like, and it's kind of crazy to me. Like, I was like, wow, the timing of that is kind of wild. And so, at that time in my life too, like I was I was like halfway through the last year of college. So that's just giving you an idea of where I was at. And I'm 39 now. So to give you kind of a trajectory of when that time frame was for me, it kind of helps to just talk about it or give you a time frame, right? And so, there's a lot of details about the story, that I'll share some of them. But I know that I'm going to be talking about this again, and there's going to be more opportunities to talk about it. And, my main goal with bringing this up to people is so that you guys can get a better idea of who I am and my journey, and hopefully help other people who may have had the same experience as me. Probably looks different because it looks different for everybody. But, this is a big deal. And this is something that happens to a lot of people, men and women. It's like both, it happens on both sides. And the side of it happening to men is not talked about almost at all, but it happens and it's real. And, I've been hearing more stories too, where people are like getting drugged at bars, but they're like waking up, in their cars and stuff, or they were given LSD at a bar or this and that. And I've just been hearing stories through literally like comedy shows that we watch. Like, people are telling these stories and I'm like, whoa, dude, like, is this like, has this always been a thing? Is it reviving or whatever is going on? But it's a deal. Okay. And so I wanted to bring this up because I know that the blocks that I was running into while I was trying to start this business really stemmed from that event. Because when that event happened to me, and for as young as I was, I literally can look in hindsight and look at myself at that time, and dude, there was a freaking split like this in my personality, like straight up. And I did the whole route of, I chose to not really tell anyone. I told, because I was living with my mom at the time, and she actually witnessed certain things, that evening when she like literally found me outside. Like she found me outside in like the middle of the winter in January in like almost below freezing temperatures. And I was like delirious, I didn't know where I was. I had no idea what was going on. And then another cat weave was just like, we had a cat at the time who, my tattoo here, if you've ever seen this tattoo on my arm, Elwood, I have it on my arm for a reason, because that cat saved my life. And it was like very early in the morning, and my mom said that, he was going crazy at the door, just like going nuts. He was meowing and meowing and meowing, and it woke her up. And she went to the front door, and she opened the door, and she said, I was at the door, but I had no idea where I was. It was cold. I didn't have my car keys, nothing, and whatever. And so she let me in, and she told me the next day that, I don't know what was going on with you, but you literally looked right through me. And like, it was like you weren't there. And so the next morning I had a college class to get to. I had to take a test and all this stuff. And I remember just being like, what the hell is going on? I had no idea. And so to kind of like go through all those details, I don't know if it's totally necessary to just like go through everything, but I did want to say that because there were clues that I was given that my mom pinned me in on, that had she not been the person that I was coming home to, I wouldn't have known the state I was in. So there's a chance that I wouldn't have understood what was really going on. But she was the person that sat me down and was like, we need to talk, because I don't know what was going on. And she was the one that actually like brought it up to me of like, I think you were given something, because there's no way. And at that point in my life, I was not a big drinker. And so I had only had like maybe 2 or 3 beers that evening, and whatever, all the common things that would happen if you were given something, but you weren't really, imbibing that much. That really happened. And so, there was all these other things that took place, but like I said, chose to button it up, right? Chose to stuff it down. And I went through a whole just depression, anxiety, detachment, disassociation. I had a hell of a time finishing my final semester of school, because it was just like, are you freaking kidding me? Or the last 2 semesters, I should say. Like, I just wasn't cognitively, emotionally functioning correctly. I had a couple people in my life, teachers that I could confide in and things like that. But I always just chose to keep it, And so the reason I want to make sure I talk about that too is that, the thing that happened was this stuff really didn't get reopened until, maybe like 10 years later. Mario and I had conversations about it, because what would happen to me is we would go to a movie and there'd be a rape scene, and I would totally disassociate, and I would walk out of the movie like a zombie. And it was because he knew the right questions to ask after a movie we went to early on when we were dating. And he asked me the question, and then I ended up telling him the story. And that continued to happen. It continued to happen. There'd be a movie, there'd be a scene, and I wouldn't be able to function. And, I knew that I needed to deal with this. I needed to deal with it on a deeper level, because it ultimately was like that main thing too, that like, it led me to drink more alcohol. It led me to being more promiscuous. It led me to partying. It led me to avoiding. And it led me down a path that never felt like it was me. Like, even all those behaviors that I did in between that time, I never felt like it was me. And I never understood fully why I was doing those things, or why I wanted to drink, or this or that. But it became a crutch, and it became something that made me feel better in moments when I didn't feel good. And that's a lot of times what happens to a lot of people when they go through trauma, any kind of trauma. And so we find these little avenues of avoidance that we find that make us feel better, and that's kind of what I was doing. And so once I started figuring out who I was in a way and what I wanted and starting Seagoat and this and that and kept coming up on these blocks and blocks and blocks, Mario and I started having really serious conversations then, about, who who did you date and what was your history, all these things. And I had such a hard time talking about it because it was all linked to sexuality, and my biggest trauma root was dealing with sexuality. And it took a long time for me to talk about a lot of that stuff, and it just did, because there was a lot of things I withheld and I wasn't ready to talk about. I couldn't talk about it. Even if I did talk about it, I wasn't able to express all of it. So there were constant conversations about it, like not in a nauseating way, in a way of just like, this is like a thing. You need to process this. And so over the course of about a year or two, after, it was probably about a year or so, maybe 6 months to a year, after I started Seagoat, after all of these things started opening up, after I was just digging in and you want it, dark night of the soul, hermit's journey, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't until I really felt like I had really worked through a lot of the stuff, felt like I was really making headway, could see changes in my behavior, asking myself big questions like, who are you really? Like, really, who are you? Those were the big things that I had to ask myself when we were having these conversations, because what I realized was that I was holding back a lot of my real self, because of these traumas that I was afraid to express. And so because of that, I feel like I had like a false sense of who I even was, or I had a false sense of what I projected out into the world kind of wasn't even truly who I was. But what I knew was that I had found herbalism, and I had found Seagoat, and I had found this healing art business that I was just in love with. And I knew that I had to follow it. And so that was one of the things that literally, it was like my buoy in the middle of the sea. The herbs were my buoy in the middle of the sea, and Mario was another buoy in the middle of the sea, I'll just say. And the herbs and the plants, though, really like drove me to continue digging into these spaces and presented themselves as they were needed. And that was one of the things I really wanted to express to you guys too, because I know that there's people out there that have gone through similar situations. And like I said in the beginning, similar situation, but it's all different. It's different to the individual. So by no means am I saying, oh, it's the same thing as me or whatever, but it's like, I just know that this happens to a lot more people than we really know about, and that's okay. And there's some people that might never feel comfortable in this lifetime talking about it, and that's okay too. We're all on our own journey, and we all have things that come up. And so that's one of the things I really wanted to stress through this too. And I don't want this to be like a downer episode either by any means. And I'm looking at this more of like a gift, that I'm actually at the point in my life with this whole situation that I can actually freaking talk about it like live to the public, to all of you guys, because like I said, there was a time where no way, and things got easier. Like it got easier. I was able to open up to really close friends of ours about this situation, and that felt really good the first time I was able to do that. The first time I was able to talk to my really great friends about this situation, and they listened and was like, oh my goodness, or whatever. And then they too brought something up of like, okay, I know someone else that has a very similar story to this. Oh my goodness, all this stuff. Every time I talked about it, it got easier. And that's one of the things that I want to stress for anybody out there who wants to talk about this and isn't ready or thinks they're ready or whatever. It gets easier. And just like any trauma that we go through, the more we work in these realms of darkness, the easier it gets to deal with them when they come up. And that's another thing that I wanted to stress too, because that is one of the main reasons why I began the healing home, because I had to heal a lot to even get to the point to start the healing home. And that's what I really wanted people to know, is that I didn't just one day go, oh, the healing home, and this is it, and blah, blah, blah. It was like, no, this was a process like so many things are. And one of the main reasons that I named it the healing home too was because I had sea goat herbs, right? And at a point too with sea goat, I was like, man, I kind of feel like I pigeonholed myself as just like sea goat herbs, like herbs. That's it, you know? And I know that I could have, broadened it and it didn't just have to be about herbs. But I kind of felt like, man, but I have so many other things that I really enjoy, like homemaking and homesteading and fermentation, and then just like the product making itself and like teaching and showing people these things, that I knew that I wanted to create a project to encompass all of that stuff. And so I went for a few weeks or a couple, and then I had a couple of like really great nights of like meditating on all these ideas and like thinking like, how can I encompass this? How can I incorporate all of it in like a name? And one night just came up with, I was like, oh, Michelle's Healing Home, because like that's what it is. Like that the home we were living in at that time too became like my healing home. Carl was my healer cat. Mario was more than just a boyfriend and still is. He's been this force. And I know I've done the same for him too, but just to facilitate these big movements in each other's lives, to kind of push each other over that to that next level of really like figuring out like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing it? What works, what doesn't work? And these were all questions that we were asking during that time frame, when all of this healing was really going on. And so the healing home was birthed, and it was kind of officially birthed, I would say probably 2018. I kind of put sea goat to rest some point 2017. And once I was able to kind of get over the failure of sea goat, because it wasn't a failure at all at the time, it felt like I had failed. It wasn't the thing, but it was the catalyst for so many things. And so healing home was birthed, and the first thing I focused on was teaching classes, and I started inviting people to our house, right? And I was hosting classes in our home, and it was awesome, and I was feeling like, okay, yeah, this is closer to what I want to do. It's closer to who I am. It's closer to just where I know I want to be, and the type of herbalist or homemaker, kitchen witch, whatever, that was where I wanted to be, in the healing home. I want to help others create a healing home, whether it's a physical home or it's a home in your mind or your heart. That's the whole thing too, of we can create healing homes in any place within ourselves. And when we start to do that work, the doors and the worlds that open up can be really incredible and life changing. And so, I've got some notes here. I just want to make sure I'm going through like I want to hit. There were like some things I really wanted to hit on. Yeah, and so we're teaching classes, the healing home, going great. Really loving it. And again, here we are right now today, 2023. And I feel as though it's evolved into the thing that I've really wanted it to become, which was, as I said in the beginning, a place to facilitate these sorts of conversations of healing. And I'll say, what I've noticed having shows with the guests that I've had on, a lot of times we end up getting into conversation that might surround topics that are a little more sensitive to that person, like really deep healing, events in their life that happened that were pivotal, that made them see things differently, that made them really take themselves seriously, or really change their behaviors, or whether it was addiction or what have you. I've noticed that as a theme with the Healing Home show itself. And it's really cool, because those are the things that, I've wanted to talk about so much, and allow other people to talk about who are ready to talk about it. And hopefully be inspirations for other people to talk about this too. And so, one of the other things that I'm seeing, and wanted to bring up is, like the whole idea of like the dark feminine, the dark masculine. It's a subject that I really love talking about, just the divine masculine, divine feminine in general. But one of the things that I've noticed, and Mario and I have talked about this, is when the dark feminine and the dark masculine are brought up, the things that we're talking about tonight, like assault and sexual energy, repressed sexual energy, um over sexualization. um it's all happening at all, coming from all angles. We're seeing our children being over sexualized. We're seeing weird, strange things with gender bending and sexual energies being thrust upon the public, all age groups, specifically children. And in my opinion, this kind of energy, and the energy that swirls around rape and assault and things like that, are literally the most clearest example of the distorted nature of the dark masculine and the dark feminine. That to me really like hits it on the head, of just like, that really is what happens when these energies aren't massaged out. They're not understood. There's repressed emotions. There's repressed trauma. There's repressed feelings or thoughts or whatever. There's abuse. All of those things, they manifest in dark ways, and people go to a lot of lengths to satisfy these cravings that they can have. And to me, that is the darkest side of these two genders, is when it's repressed, and then it's expressed in these like distorted, disturbing, kind of more dark, addictive sort of things. And so, then you have porn, and you have things like OnlyFans, and you have women and men who are offering themselves up on these platforms, for money, and they're not really, maybe not even understanding the severity of it while they're in it, and like the damage that they might be doing, because there's so much propaganda around being sexually liberated is to be promiscuous, or is to be, free love, or is to, give yourself away on the internet or on the street corner or whatever. It's like, okay, I mean, to me, that's kind of like, it's not necessarily the best way to be dealing with these things. But unfortunately, because I feel like how society is, and how we as a society have been raised to like view sex, is one of the reasons why it gets this way. Because on the other side of it, on the flip side, sex is a very healing thing. Understanding your sexuality, and sharing these intimate times with somebody that you truly really love and feel connected to, there is something so freaking healing about that, that it is like so incredible that, until you're able to really allow yourself to feel the healing energy of it, you almost don't even understand it. And that's how I was. Um I didn't realize the healing aspect of it, how it was actually meant to be healing, and not just like given away freely, or looked at as just something that wasn't a big deal, or whatever. And in the other sense too, it's just like, I'm not trying to be like a preacher or anything. I'm not trying to tell people how to live their lives, or what to choose, or whatever. Because at the end of the day, that's not my agenda on anything. I don't have, I'm not attached to convincing people that herbs are the way, that you need to do this, or this is what you have to do, or you should do that, or whatever. It's like, I understand that everybody's like on their own path. And, if our paths align, that's fucking awesome. And I'd love to align, when it does. And if it doesn't, that's cool too. And that's been one of my biggest things of letting go as well, because I think a lot of my attachments to trauma was not being able to let go, to have like having so much guilt and shame and embarrassment or fear, whatever. Fear of the unknown was a lot of it, because it's like, well, if I talk about this, what's going to happen? I don't know, God. It's just like, well, you don't know until you talk about it. And did it suck? Yeah. Was it fun? Not all the time. Was I scared as hell? Yep. Did I sometimes not know what my life was going to look like the next day? But all of that said, some of the best stuff I ever did was learn how to express this stuff and be okay with it. Forgive myself, then forgive other people, who at the time, things I thought I'd never be able to forgive, was able to. And then letting it go and knowing that it happened for a reason. And that's one of the other reasons why I wanted to have this episode, was because for me, it's like it happened for a reason, because here I am. Here I am on the other side, but it's always a part of me. And I know that it was such a huge part of my journey. And it's one of the reasons why I'm here, because it happened. And all the ways that I chose to deal with things was how I was supposed to deal with it, right? So that I could get to this point, be in my mom's basement in 2023, talking to y'all about why I'm here to do this work. And it feels pretty incredible. And so, I want to also now kind of segue into, what were some of the things that really helped me to deal with this, because it took me a long time. And here, just again, to talk about the timeline. So, this event took place when I was like almost 22. Didn't really start to crack it till 33. And then now at 39, kind of like really being able to get big picture, like very big picture, and look at things in hindsight and be like, whoa, yep, checks out. Kind of like when you see your astrological chart, or someone gives you a reading and they tell you stuff about, like, oh yeah, here's this and here's that, and there's this conjunction and this and that. And you can stand back and go like, well, that makes a hell of a lot of sense, because that's what I do. And I can see that and this and that. And I guess like having that hindsight with all this stuff has been one of the more healing things too, in general. And so let's talk about healing modalities and herbs and stuff. And also, I kind of want to scan the chat, just because we're having this live chat and you guys are here and I'm appreciating it. And thank you for sticking around. I hope I didn't make anybody feel uncomfortable or whatever. Because as I said, it's sometimes not fun stuff to talk about, but Lou, thank you very much. Kicking ass M, and that couch is amazing. Yes, isn't it? And where is this? I love this blanket. Like when I sat down, I was like, dude, this is so that 70s show. It's so funny. And to be in my mom's basement for this episode too is really interesting, because basement, root chakra, what? So the whole thing has just been so freaking weavy. And yeah, this couch actually is like, oh my God, it's totally from my mom's old house, like when I was growing up. And so it's just really funny, whenever I come home, it's so funny because there's just so many things around that I'm like, oh my God, I remember that when I was like very young, and here it is, and I'm sitting in it again. And it's just how life is. So yes, Family Fungi, you're welcome. Thanks for hanging out and listening to all of this stuff. And let's see who else is here. Jenny G, love to hear about your connection to healing via plants. Yeah, I mean, they were the ones that were kind of like guiding me in so many ways. And yeah, it's been amazing. Amy, Leaves of Grass, says, our sexuality is such a beautiful gift of light. And when someone violates us in that way, it makes us feel tarnished and worn, as if we were broken forever. So glad Mario helped you heal. Yeah, no, thank you. And it does. And, that was one of the things that I remember feeling, of just like, wow, what? And then it like totally distorted my view of sexuality. And then it distorted my view of like what men actually want, and what women want. What do I want as a woman? And then what what am I supposed to do as a woman to find a mate and all these things and just weird stuff. And so there was all this like distortion, twisted stuff that happened with that. And I think that can happen with a lot of things. It doesn't have to be an assault necessarily, and so there can be a lot of things that happen to us in life that can give us like a skewed view of how important and sacred our sexuality is. And again, like that's kind of like the world we're living in. And anyone who has eyes to see can see that this stuff is really ramping up. It's ramping up in the media. Just like I said, the gender bending, the all of this stuff, it's just like really ramping up. And so it's been an interesting thing to just see what's going on. So big hugs from Brianna. Thank you. And yeah, so all right. We're up in the chat. That's great. Thank you guys again for hanging out. So yeah, thanks for filling him in, polymathing. Jason, yeah, we're doing a healing journey, healing journey episode. So went into some more intimate stuff just about things that have happened in my life and what's brought me to this point to be able to talk about it, number one, but also why I started the healing home, why I'm calling it the healing home and what have you. So now with all of that stuff, let's talk about the herbs, the specific herbs and practices that really were key and crucial for me to really begin integrating this and changing my behavior and also changing the way that I was dealing with some of it. And so the first herb that I'm going to talk about is motherwort. I've talked about motherwort so many times. So people who have followed my work or listened to me talk about it. When I talk about motherwort, I have such a, she's so revered to me. She's one of my best allies. And in the darkest times, when I was super unsure, when I was feeling the most anxious, when I was feeling the most scared and everything, motherwort was that one remedy that she went to the core, man. She just such a heart remedy. She's known as Lionaris cardiacus, or AKA Lionheart. She is a heart-based herb, like for cardiac issues, but one of the main things that people use motherwort for is anxiety, acute anxiety, even feelings of panic attacks, which that was part of the thing. So, feeling that just overwhelming wave of anxiety and having motherwort there to help me was seriously just hands down, bar none, the remedy that I would recommend for anybody going through this, going through anything that's challenging, really. Because motherwort, I like to say, is she brings you the comfort that only a mother can. And that is what she does. And it's been my experience. It's been the experience I know of others. I've shared this plant with other people because of this element of it, and knowing that there is such a loving energy that comes from motherwort. And it was one of my strongest allies during this time. And so I recommend it to anybody. And the way I recommend taking it is a tincture, because the plant itself is very, very bitter. So making a tea of it, you could try, but it's pretty bitter to the point where it's not fun to drink. So why do that? Why do that to yourself? You could get yourself a tincture, and the tincture is going to be faster acting as well, because if it's alcohol based, it's really going to get to your blood really quickly. But maybe you can get like a apple cider vinegar base or a glycerin based tincture, and that can really bring some like really strong relief. Sometimes I would find putting motherwort straight under my tongue would bring relief within like a minute, or if you were having panic, there was panic feelings. just taking it, as soon as those feelings would start, and the motherwort would really calm down everything, heart palpitations, racing heart, just any kind of just like feeling of overwhelm. It really, really, really comes in strong. And there's really no, like, in my opinion, you almost can't take too much of it. I've never heard that being a case, but don't fully quote me. um do your own research too, but this is just my experience, and I know that it's also an herb that a lot of other people who work with trauma really suggest. I also suggest taking it in drop doses, not just like, you don't always have to just like pound it down dropper full by dropper full. A lot of times I was doing a lot of drop doses because drop doses can sometimes be stronger than even a full dropper. And the drop doses actually also help to like facilitate more of the movement that needs to happen when you're dealing with heavy things like this, because the drop dose almost is like taking some kind of essence or taking like a homeopathic remedy, where sometimes lower less is better than taking more and like really trying to just like hammer yourself, right? And so that was a good one. Jason Lewis is asking where you get motherwort. You can get motherwort from me. I sell motherwort tincture that I make with motherwort grown in our garden. And you're done in Mexico. So I wonder if there has to be, I'm sure there's like herbal companies down there that might make it. Another source I would recommend is always Tippecanoe Herbs. I know that they carry motherwort as well. So depending on like, where you want to get it from, you can also get it from so many herbal suppliers. Another really great herb company that I've never really brought up is called Red Moon Herbs. They are they're in the East Coast. They're in the Catskills Mountains, and they make wonderful tinctures. And actually, the motherwort I was taking while I was doing all this healing work was the Red Moon Herbs motherwort. And they make all of their tinctures with fresh herbs, which that's how I like to make my tinctures, unless it's like wintertime or I can't get it or something like that and I have to use dried. But the motherwort, when it's made fresh, it's pretty crucial to get it. I feel like it's pretty crucial to have it made from a fresh plant, or take a tincture that's made with a fresh plant, because I just find that it's always stronger in my opinion. But that's just me, and that's not how everybody thinks about it. So yeah, those are some sources where you can get it. If you're interested in buying it from me, just send me an email, and yeah, we can settle that up. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was a company that so Mario has done the design work for her. I know her from Portland because she owned a really great herb shop in Portland for many years. But her name is Lori, and she runs now a company called Two Spirit Medicinals, and she has a couple tinctures that are really wonderful and that really helped me through this time. One of them is called Serenity Now, and in that one, I don't remember 100% what's in there, but I know that it's packed with kava kava, which is a really great one. There's lavender in there, there's motherwort in there, I think. But if you can find her website, Two Spirit Medicinals. All of her medicines are really great. Another one of her collection that really helped me was called Restoring the Sacred Hoop. And that is specifically blended for people who are going through dealing with sexual trauma, dealing with assault, dealing with the other side of those things. And I'll have a story about that one. So when I was just continuing to do this work, I took that Restoring the Sacred Hoop tincture before bed, and I had a dream. I had a dream that night that I was frying eggs on like a griddle. And I don't know anybody who's maybe worked in a diner or a coffee shop that serves breakfast or something, but I've had a job like that. And so there's something called an egg ring. And so it's just like a metal ring. It actually looks like the lid of a mason jar, which you can actually use a lid of a mason jar to do this. But you put the egg ring down on the griddle or in your pan, and you crack the egg inside of the egg ring, and it holds it. So it basically makes a round egg. So you can put it on like a bagel or a English muffin or whatever. And so in the dream, I was making eggs with the egg ring. And I had taken that restoring the sacred hoop medicine that night. And I woke up going, holy smokes, like that was like very symbolic of like, in my opinion, restoring my sacred hoop in a way. Cause it's like, it was an egg. Like I'm a lady. I produce eggs, and yeah, so it was pretty profound. And I actually told her that story because it was just so profound. And her medicine really has helped me a lot. And she makes teas and tinctures, and she's got like essences and stuff like that. And she lives in Battle Creek, Washington. And as I said, like Mario has done the design work for her products. And so she's a really great source. Lemon balm was another herb at one point. Like I did not leave the house without lemon balm because what I was finding when I was going through all that stuff was I was having a lot of anxiety being around other people, which throughout periods of my life, I kind of had situations happen like that, but I typically don't really get anxious about being around other people or being, in front of people or what have you. But when I was raw, like the rawest I've ever been, I sure as hell had problems going to like, I didn't even really like going to like parties at that time, or I didn't go to like many events. I was more, I had to be closer to me. I had to just be at home a lot more during that time. But, once I kind of started to feel like I was kind of starting to see results with healing all this stuff. And I started going places again. Not like I wasn't like a shut-in. I don't want it to sound like that. It was just when it came to like parties or events or something, it just didn't jive with me at that time. But lemon balm sure helped me to be able to get to the point where if I was going somewhere like a party or a potluck, I could take the lemon balm with me and I would take it before I was at the party, probably take it during a couple times or whatever. And it really helped just take the edge off a lot. And that's another great one, for calming the nervous system, calming the stomach, and really helping your mind to focus a little bit more. Because anyone who's gone through something traumatic, whether it's like losing a loved one or, some of the things that we talked about this evening, you know that your focus just isn't 100% there. It's not super clear. And lemon balm though can really help to bring clarity to the mind and help you focus when you feel like you're not focused. And so that was another remedy that really, really, really was a strong ally for me and still is to this day. And I recommend it to people, specifically children, like children who might have like separation anxiety or they have trouble focusing or they don't really like being, maybe they go to school and they have a hard time, being with people or whatever. Lemon balm is great for a child. You can make it as a glycerate if you don't want to give them alcohol. You can make it as a tea. You could send it to school with them. All these little things. There's so many things that you can do to incorporate these plants into your daily, especially when you're having these struggles that yeah, there's just a lot you can do. There's a lot of ways to do it, and they're gentle and they're safe, and they really will help you in more ways than just helping your anxiety. It's like they open up so many channels within yourself and your psyche and your emotional body that it's more than just taking an herb to get rid of anxiety. It's when you start a journey with plants and you start working with plants in that way, you really quickly realize that it's bigger than just anti-anxiety medicine. It's not like that. It's like, no, no, no. We're also going to show you the things that make you anxious and why, and help you to ask yourself those questions. Why, because that's what's really important. And that's like what the herbs, at least in my experience, have done for me. And I've seen them do that for other people. And so that has to be stated in my opinion. Another thing that was so freaking valuable for me was yoga. And I had never I'd never done yoga before I was dealing with all of this kind of stuff, the dark night of the soul, whatever you want to call it. I'd never done yoga before, and well, I take that back. I had taken a couple classes. I had never taken yoga seriously. I'll say, they have a class in the city or whatever. Oh, 5 classes for the price of one or whatever. And I can remember signing up for something like that at one point, but I never committed to yoga before that point in my life. But then when I was going through all this stuff, I knew that I was going to need to do new practices for myself in order to calm myself down and to allow myself to kind of like go more inward. And yoga was one of them. And I ended up starting to do it at home. And then I went to a yoga studio for a little while, did one of those other ones where you get to sign up for, 2 weeks, and before you really become a member or something. But even in that 2 weeks, I was able to learn a lot of things going to the yoga studio, and they had a sauna there. And being in a sauna really helped me too. I mean, and any just symbolically, even a sauna, you're sweating all this stuff out, right? So you're like flushing yourself and you're clearing yourself. And the sauna was a really great thing for me to do as well. And so during this time, then I just started taking yoga really seriously. And so then it became a daily practice for me. It's been a daily practice for me for so many years. Starting back then, so circa 2017, basically till now. I mean, I still do yoga to this day because there's so many benefits that come from it, and it's amazing at the different types that there are. I highly suggest yin yoga for anybody who is wanting to do more of the more meditative, slower, really, really stretchy yoga. Because the yin yoga, you're basically like holding poses for 2 to 5 minutes is usually the range that goes. If you look up yin yoga on YouTube or you take a class or whatever, that's usually typically where it starts. It's like a 2 to 5 minute hold of each pose. And when you do that, it's like you start to you'll be in a pose and it's challenging to hold the pose, right? Because it might be a tight muscle, and you never want pain, right? If it's like painful or you feel like you're pulling a muscle or whatever, obviously stop holding it. But there's that threshold of like, yeah, it's a little uncomfortable, but in a good way. And like you hold it so that you kind of are allowing your brain to go into this different place. And you can get really calm, you can get really focused, and you can go inward very easily. And then it's really interesting to me, the thing when you know you've found yourself a good yoga instructor, they'll ask you to acknowledge the thoughts that come up when you're in these poses. Even online, there's great yoga practitioners online who, while you're doing the class, may even prompt or say something like, think about what's coming up as you're doing this stretch. Like that is something to explore, right? And so that's what yin yoga is really great for. All yoga can do that, all types. But I find that the yin, it's so much more introspective, and it's more about like you might have a 40-minute class and you might literally only do 10 moves. You know what I mean? Because you're holding it for so long. Yeah, that was a really great tool for me. And as I said, it's still a great tool for me. I find so much healing in yoga. I think that it is a wonderful thing for people to incorporate when they're going through something like that. And Qigong was another thing. But yoga, I'll say yoga was the one that really, really resonated with me. And I think it's because I'm such a physical person. I am quite flexible already. And so when I started doing yoga, it was like, oh, wow, this like really, really works for me. And it's not everybody's thing. But I think that even just stretching and things like that, when we hold we hold trauma and we hold emotions in our muscles. So I think that's why yoga is such a healing practice and can really help people to deal with a lot of this kind of stuff, because the things that are stored in these muscles, they start to open up when you're doing yoga and when you're stretching and when you're holding poses and all of these things. It's like these things can kind of come up, and sometimes you get emotional. I've cried during yoga, I've cried after yoga, whatever. And it's because you're unlocking things within yourself. And when you're in your own space like that and you're allowing your body to be open and vulnerable like that, things are going to come through, and you almost just have to like allow it to happen. You have to allow the emotions to flow, and that's also what plants do, because a lot of times plants, when you take a tincture, especially if you're going to take drop doses, I've had it where I've taken drop doses of something and just been overwhelmed with emotion, just start crying, and you're like, oh my goodness, I literally took a drop of that. Or like sitting next to an herb, taking a leaf and putting it in your mouth, and that being something that can facilitate a total emotional response. And that's not a bad thing, And then the thing about it is like learning how to, balance these emotions. So not getting overly emotional, but not having no emotion, being kind of like in that middle ground of, you know, just being managing your emotions and having a relationship with them and understanding them and stuff like that. That's what a lot of this work can help you get to, um and so yes, I think, a lot of the stuff I've been able to cover that I've wanted to cover with you guys. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, rose. Rose was a huge ally for me. Specifically rose elixir, which is basically like a tincture, but it's not as alcohol heavy. You're usually using like 50% alcohol. Um, and then either like honey. So it's like a weaker well, it's not like weaker, but in my experience, like you're using alcohol but you're sweetening it with honey, and so there's something a little more gentle about it, and it's a very delicious um remedy. The other remedy that I used in conjunction with the rose elixir was rose quartz essence. Now, when I was dealing with all of these issues that I was having, that's when I really got into flower and gem essences, because they are so gentle, but they're so potent as well. Just like we talked about earlier, like with a homeopathic or something. Sometimes, like when a homeopathic is diluted, like to its furthest point, is when it like can be the most potent medicine for a person. The less is more sort of idea. And the essences really pick up like the spirit or the essence of the plant or the crystal. And so yeah, the rose quartz along with the rose elixir was a really great one. Bleeding heart was a flower essence that was really helpful for me. A lot of it is in the name, bleeding heart, but like wild bleeding heart, actually, though, to be specific, was the one that I was taking, and that was really one that helped me to realize the love that was coming up through all the trauma, the love that I was finding in Mario, the love that I was feeling from him, even though sometimes our conversations were really hard. It was like a tough love. And I'm a true believer to this day that tough love is sometimes and a lot of times the best love you can get, because it really makes you look at yourself in a different way than just always being told that you can do no wrong, or oh yeah, everything's fine, or oh, it's like no. A lot of times, like when you're in relationships, romantic or not, with a friend, even like tough love for a friend, or being given tough love from a friend can sometimes be like the pinnacle of a friendship That's been my experience. Having friends of mine, good friends of mine, being able to, tell me things that they notice about me where they're like, what are you doing? And having that moment of like, whoa, like, because sometimes you don't snap out of something until someone really close to you, who you care about a lot, who cares about you a lot, can call you out on something, and when that happens, it can really upset you maybe in the moment, but if you are able to take that advice, and it's usually not even advice, it's usually just almost like a warning, or like they're throwing you a fucking line, in a way. And I've had friends that have done that for me, and I know I've been that for other friends as well. And so when you have a friendship where you can do that, or a partnership, or where you can do that stuff, that is solid freaking gold. That's gold. And it is seriously freaking amazing. And it's one of the gifts that I think that we can be given. We can take, and we can receive, and we can give, because yeah, it's just so crucial to so many things, to healing, in general. And it makes a relationship much stronger too, especially when the person that is receiving can see the point, and understand it, and take it well, and then actually integrate it and make a change. That's when the real stuff happens. That's when the relationship will get stronger, and that's when it'll become so much more easier for you to deal with the next thing that comes up, because everybody knows that there is no end to this healing work. There's always something that's going to happen, always something that will pop up about you and how you do something, that it might not even be that big of a deal, but it might be something that should probably look at, because maybe something not so good happened. Maybe it wasn't the end of the world, but it's like, yeah, I guess I could have dealt with that a little bit better. It's these little things, like being able to like step back and be critical of yourself, but not in an unhealthy way. Critical in the way of like, you're wanting to be productive, you're wanting to have critical thought, so that you can apply it to your life and make changes that are positive, so that you can like continue to keep going and not stop, and get stifled by little things that shouldn't stifle. They should actually, they're like little gems along the trail to help you. It's like in the video game where you pick up the ring, right? And you get 20 points or whatever. I don't play video games, so I don't know. There's all sorts of things I'm sure you can pick up in video games that gives you a power boost or whatever. It's not that I've never played video games, but I just don't play them anymore. So Lord knows Sonic the Hedgehog gets revved up when he runs through and gets all the rings, right? That's what these little things in our lives are like. I almost feel like that's what our traumas are almost like that. It's like these challenges that come up for us, they're golden rings. They're golden rings of their gifts. They're parts of us that we're being gifted to understand more deeply, and then with that, be able to integrate this stuff, change behaviors, so that you can lead by example and help someone else do the same thing. And in a nutshell, that's the healing home. I really try and do that. And that's why, even in the beginning of the show, for people who weren't here, that's why I brought up the Solomon seal thing about my post with Instagram, finding out from a friend of mine who said, hey, I think that's actually false Solomon seal. And I went, oh, cool. Well, I'm just starting to get to know that plant. So that's cool that you told me that that's actually false Solomon seal that I had. And now I can talk about that and change that. And now I'll know next time that it's false Solomon seal. And when I because like I said in the beginning, when I was introduced to it in the woods, the plant I found, it was told to me that it was Solomon seal. So I was like, oh, okay, Solomon seal, right? And so it's all these little things like that, that when we're able to kind of be okay with ourselves even making a mistake, and then but being able to have accountability enough to be like, hey, yeah, so that thing that happened, yeah, that wasn't, it was this, and sorry about that, or not even being sorry but just changing, like not always just always apologizing about actions but never changing. What's the point of an apology? I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of things in life. And it's when you start to be able to realize that that's where real things start to take hold, is when you can start to really like hone in on your passions in life, and what you're meant to do here, and multiple things that you're meant to do here, because I don't think we all just have like, I think we all have multiple things that we are able and capable of doing. And I think that there's things in our lives that we do that resonate so deeply that we just know that that is like work that you need to do. And, doing this kind of shadow work, dark night of the soul stuff, it gets you closer to finding those things. And that's also one of the things I wanted to talk about too, briefly, was just, you know, had none of this stuff happened to me, had none of the conversations and the pain and the tears and the, dropping to my knees, had that never happened, I wouldn't be right here where I am. And I know it's so cliche, but it's true. And I just think that it's a really cool thing to be able to share this with you guys. And again, I'm really appreciative that you guys are here with me and listened to it, and just really, really, really um, love doing this. And I've just been so grateful for this whole thing. And I'm just feeling so blessed to have the opportunity to be in this position. And I take it, I hold it with a lot of respect, and I look at it very seriously. And that's another reason why I wanted to talk to you guys about this situation with myself, my own healing journey, because this stuff is serious. It's not to be taken lightly, but it's also not to be taken so heavy that it feels like an unsurmountable thing. You know what I mean? Because it can at some points, but it's about like, it's not gonna happen overnight. It's just not. You're not just gonna bring it up one time and go, okay, cool, on to the next thing. It's like, it might, sometimes things come up like that, but there's going to be a process that happens, just like with anything else. Making a tincture, you're not going to make a tincture, you can't, there's ways to make tinctures quickly, like in 24 hours or 48 hours if you have to. But or gardening is a really great example. You're going to plant a seed, there's no way you're going to really speed that up too much. Yeah, maybe some electroculture, maybe some crystals, maybe some magnets might help it go a little faster, make it stronger, um, but you can't force nature. You can't speed up nature. She has a system and a cycle for a reason. And that's just one of the things I wanted to make sure to remind people of too, of like, this stuff takes time, and it's okay. And there's a beautiful thing about the time that it takes. And another cliche thing is just like, time is a healer, right? And it really does heal. Time makes things easier. With time, you learn so many things about yourself and other people, that then you can apply to your own life, and then like take that and move further onto the journey. And so, yeah, just want to say thanks again, because I'm really enjoying this. And I'm going to head into the chat one last time, and then I have announcements as usual. What's up, Bubs Bird Bear? Charlai, I love your name, Charlai. Yeah, I emailed you about shampoo bars. I'm not sure if you got my email. I know you wanted 2 bars. So let me know if you're still in the chat. I never heard back, so I just wanted to make sure. I was going to email you again today or tomorrow to just check in and see if you ever got my other email. But yes, you're welcome. Thanks for being here. I have a sphere of rose quartz by my bed, says Michelle Millen. Yes, I too. I don't have a sphere, but I have a nice solid chunk of rose quartz right on my bedside table, because it's so healing and it's just wonderful. And it's the stone that Mario and I put in our water filter. We keep a stone, a rose quartz stone, in the bottom half of our water filter, so it's almost like we're constantly having. Rose quartz essence water in a way. So yes. All right. Be like water, says Bruce Lee. That's a good one. Yeah, you have to. You have to be able to flow. Yeah, gosh, that's a great quote. Jenny G, in my opinion, she says, once you start yoga, don't stop yoga. Otherwise, body is more sensitive to bad postures, overall unhealthy posing. Yes, that's such a great point. That's so true, because I've even noticed where there's times where, like, if you are vacationing, like I'm not vacationing but I'm here, I'm not at home. When you're in a situation where you may have not been able to do it that day or whatever, the difference that you can tell when you have just even 2 days of not doing it or whatever. Yeah, it's the real deal, and it's so freaking amazing what it is. Jenny G says, gotta say, hot yoga was my gateway yoga. That's awesome. Yeah, sweaty. Yes, hot yoga is awesome. I've done that too, and I really loved it. Because, yeah, again, that sweating, that like purification that happens. And so, yes. So, yeah, thank you so much, guys. Showing support. I use the lemon balm power and rinse as a tea. Okay, that may have been like something, but yeah, lemon balm. Boop, balm. I've recently found relief from anxiety racing mind with an eagle fern tincture. Ironically, I'm pretty sure eagle fern grows somewhere in the Pacific Northwest where I live, but I had to buy it out of the UK. Huh, interesting. Yeah, fern. I could see why fern would be so balancing and healing. I mean, just look at a fern and like look at how it grows in the forest. And there's such a calming, soft, like cooling energy that I get from ferns anyway. And yeah, so you guys are all very welcome. Alicia says, you're an old wise soul, my dear. You have a way of expressing things that I find very helpful. I've got just a few years on you in age, 81, baby, but you are enlightening me and helping me grow. Well, thank you. Oh my goodness. 81. That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you, Alicia. Oh, well, I've been hanging out at my grandma's, since I've been home, and they're both 88. And boy, oh boy, what a freaking blessing to still have them in my life and just see them as older crones. And it's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for hanging out and acknowledging my old soul qualities, because yeah, I too have always felt that way about myself. I've always felt that way as a young girl. I'm always like looking forward to aging, looking forward to getting older, becoming a crone. There's like this excitement in me about becoming a crone, which some people have found weird over the years. But I think that it's a gift to get older, and it's a gift to be able to transition from this place. And so, yeah. Thank you, Family Fungi. Trust the process, release the outcome. Great stuff, Michelle. Yes, thank you so much. And yeah, okay. Polymathine says, I freaking love ferns. Yeah, me too. They're really awesome. And forest friends for sure. So, yeah, I'm really grateful you guys stuck around as usual. And let's get into some slides. As always, thank you to my patrons. As I said in the beginning, you guys seriously keeping the ship with full steam ahead. With not only is it like the financial side of things that keeps it full steam ahead, but like just the knowing that you guys are in support of what Mario and I are doing, is just like seriously means so much and means the world. And that is motivating in and of itself, honestly. Because the more, like, when I people are signing up, I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, that's great. It motivates me to want to keep going, because for so long I was doing the Healing Home and Sea Goat, and just always feeling like, okay, is anyone listening? Is anyone out there? And over the last year or so, creating this community, meeting all of you guys has just been like seriously so motivating and reassuring and awesome to be like talking with you guys and getting your insights back as well. Because as I said too, all of us have so many situations and so many experiences in life that matter so much. And talking about this stuff is the best thing we can do. So Chance, Binaboo, Inland Sea, Liam, Amy, Miriam Hank, Jenny G, Erica, Moonlander, Mary, Catherine, Logan, Lily Vine, and Debbie. Thank you so much, as always. Really appreciate you guys. Patreon.com/The Healing Home is where you can go if you want to become a patron. Pretty soon, my full moon offering for this month will drop. That will be on Saturday, June 3rd, my brother's wedding day. So a day or two before, so on Friday, patrons will know what my full moon offering for the month will be. So if you want to have that perk, you can sign up at patreon.com in order to be able to order things early and just have a little bit more of a heads up of what's coming down the pipeline. Next week, Mario and I will be flying home, so I will not have a show next week. It's just too much to try to do all that stuff. So next week's going to be an off week, but the week after that, on June 13th, I'm going to be joined by Nicole Mesa, George Mesa of Third Eye Edify's wife. And I just recently got a chance to listen to Nicole and George talk on his channel about her work as a midwife and a doula. And she has a lot of really cool information to share. And I really, as soon as I heard her talking, I really wanted to talk to her. So I got a hold of her and she's down. So she's going to come on to the Healing Home and talk about her experience of learning about this craft of helping life to come through through the portal and into this realm, and her experiences with that. And I'm really excited to talk to her. So that'll be June 13th at 4 p.m. here on the Healing Home for anyone who wants to come and hang out. Full Moon Offering newsletter, as I said, next issue coming out on June 3rd, this Saturday. I still have, I think now I have three or four CBD cannabis root and white willow bark salves left for y'all. This has been great. I just got an email the other day for another order for this salve, and the woman was telling me that this is the only salve that has helped her partner's shoulder. So bravo. That's awesome. I'm always really glad to hear that when one of my remedies is like one of the things that cracks a code for somebody, or one of the things that just really takes things over the edge. So that is really incredible, and really happy to hear that as always. Up on the screen is my menu. It's getting shorter. I'm going to have a pretty big, I'm going to be whipping up more stuff coming up here because I've sold through a lot of things. So as always, thanks again to all the people who've been placing orders and being so supportive with wanting to try my remedies. Always stoked when my remedies resonate with people. So yeah, let me know if anything up on the screen looks like something you want to try. And in order to do that, just email me, michelleshealinghome@gmail.com for orders, questions. If you have a review of a product, feel free to email that to me. michelleshealinghome.com is my website where you can sign up for my newsletter. You can learn about my consultations. You can read past issues of my newsletter if you're not signed up for that. What else is on there? Oh, goodness. There's a blog on there that's quite current where I share a lot of recipes and thoughts and ramblings and things like that. As always, last Thursday returns June 8th. I love that he put that in that thumbnail. That looks great. So that's actually my brother's birthday. So we'll be with you guys on Thursday, June 8th, for another episode of Last Thursday, where Mario and I throw down. We roll some die. We roll a die. We talk about what's on our minds, and we interact with you guys here in the chat so that we can all have a little bit of a round table. And with that, there she is, the healing home, the Triple H, the pillar, the three pillars. And yeah, that is that's what it's all about, the pillars of healing. And so that is where I'm at with things. It's what I'm very excited to be sharing with people, allowing other people to share, bringing them into the fold on the show so they can talk about their healing journeys if they see fit, the things that they're doing. And it's been really fun so far. So as always, thank you guys for joining me. Thanks for hanging out in the basement with me. So cool. I'm glad it worked out this way. Glad I had this space where I could do it. And yeah, as always, take care. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on June 13th for the episode with Nicole Mesa. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Have a good rest of your week. And we'll see you on the flip side.